So today we're going to be changing my diff covers on the 2006 TJ. And again, up till owning this TJ, I never did anything except for maybe changing my oil. So this will be interesting. It looks like a fairly easy job from other people's YouTubes, but we'll see how it goes. I guess I did change my rad, my water pump, my thermostat housing, and belts when I blew my rad on the second run, off-road run that I did earlier this year. But it was fairly straightforward. I made a little bit of a mistake in over-torquing the thermostat housing and cracked it, which is why I replaced the housing. But other than that, it went really well. I flushed it out with some rad solution to clean out the cooling system, and that went relatively straightforward. It was just really waiting on the parts, which was kind of frustrating. But today we'll do the diff covers, and hopefully everything will turn out. So as you can see, I already started taking off the bolts from the diff cover. They're actually quite easy to do. They weren't torqued on too tight. So when you're replacing the diff cover, make sure that you use the specified torque specs that you're given by the manufacturer, and I'll be talking about that in a little later. I haven't actually looked it up yet, but I will before I fully tighten them down. So all of the screws were very accessible via your normal ratchet. This is a 1/2-inch ratchet. Up top, I had to use one of those fancy angular attachments to get up there. This one right there, that was a pain. I couldn't reach it with my ratchets, even when I went with a smaller ratchet handle. And the angle attachment thingy, I don't know what the technical term for it is, but it was too thick to fit between the bolt and this bar right here. So I ended up using a flat wrench, the socket type. This one right here. So it basically, once I put it on, and I can just ratchet it. That worked well. It was, you know, a little hard just to get the torque I needed to turn it, but it did do it eventually. So other than that, one bolt is pretty straightforward. What I'm doing is I'll continue to take off these bolts, leaving the top one for last, and hopefully that will stop the diff cover from falling, but also will allow most of the transmission fluid to come out before the last bolt is taken out. So we'll see how it goes. Talk to you in a bit. So if you can see, I got all the nuts out except for the top one, which is loosened off. There's a bit of differential oil slightly dripping out. That wetness that you see is just PB Blaster, which I put on all the nuts. Actually, I don't think I really needed too much of that. I think the previous person put anti-seize on all of the bolts, which is nice of them, so they came out pretty easily. So I'm gonna give it a whack and hopefully get this off the seal, and then the differential fluid should come out. So we'll let you know how that goes, because I'm gonna need 2 hands. Now, something I noticed when I took out the plug, there's a bit of metal shavings in there, which can't be good. So I'll be doing some inquiries to see how bad that is, what that means. So here we have it, all 3 diff covers. We have the TMR, Frog Fab, and we have the original OEM. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to see the real thickness of each. So that's 4.12 millimeters. Now, I should probably do it from over here. It's a little cleaner. Okay, if you can see that, it is 3.5. The TMR $7.97, almost 8. Frog Fab 10 millimeters. So as far as most protection, I guess 10.1-ish, 10 millimeters for all intents purposes. So if thickness of steel is the true understanding of protection, Fab Frog wins it by a landslide. So I guess before I head out and put this on, I'm actually, I was debating whether or not to use the goo stuff for the gasket seal. Some people, the folks where I picked up the gasket, said that it's not necessary, but the gentleman personally uses some gasket goo to stick the gasket on and then put it on, which you have to wait for 2 hours before you fill up the transmission fluid. And I also got a locker lube gasket, which is a multi-use gasket, which I'm going to use in the rear end, and we'll see how that goes, because I figure I'm going to try this without any gasket seal on it and see if it's okay, because worst case, if it doesn't work and the locker lube does, I'll get the locker lube, and then the front is a lot easier to change than the rear, so I can easily change it out. So that's the plan right now, and we'll see how it goes. So both the TMR and the Frog Fab came with these nice shiny bolts. So what I'm going to be doing is just putting a little dab of anti-seize on the threads before putting them in, and that way there, the next time I take it off, it should be easy again, just like it was today. I plan on changing, because I go off-roading, I plan on changing the diff fluid probably once a year, whether it needs it or not. So that's the plan. So it looks pretty good. The one thing that I would caution about is with these screws, although they look pretty, it's hard to get at these and tighten them up. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is jack up the Jeep so that this goes above those bolts. So this here goes above the bolts, and then I've got access to actually tighten them, because right now there's no way that I can get anything that I have into that spot to tighten them. Like this is just not long enough to get in there. Actually, it's probably because it's so fat there. I might be able to get to that one with a longer torque screw or hex bit, but this one definitely, that's not happening. There's no access to that one. So I'll be back in a minute. So now we have the rear diff, which is a little bit more difficult to get at. It's up in there. So nice thing is, I guess there's nothing really in front of the bolts, so it might actually be easier than the other one, because the other one I'm gonna have to do something. I still haven't tightened it totally up yet, because I've got to do something with the that bar that's in front. So I'm gonna start on the rear, and it's supposed to rain this afternoon, so I figure I'll get this done and at least the hard part will be done, and then if it does rain, I just have to jack up the front end and tighten up those bolts later and then put the diff fluid in. So I'll let you know how this goes. Okay, so I've loosened off all of the bolts except for the very top one, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a tap with my mallet. There it goes. There we go. And once again, it doesn't look like there's water in the transmission fluid, so thankful for that. But it's better be safe than sorry, and after off-road season, change your diff fluid just to make sure, because you don't want rust and crap happening within your diff if you can help it. So lube blocker. This is supposed to be a reusable gasket for your diff covers, which if you're going to be changing them regularly, or the fluid regularly, you're going to be having this diff cover come on and off. And I think it's a good investment. I got one to try it, and then I'm going to try the other gasket as well. I think it was about $50 for the lube blocker and about $18 for the regular gasket, just from the local parts store. So we'll see how it goes. You know, if you change your differential oil or fluid 3 times, the lube lock pays for itself. Doesn't need any gasket goo or anything like that. You just screw it on. So we'll see how it goes. So today I'm using Lucas 75W140 gear oil, and it calls for 1.89 liters in each differential, so that's what I will be using. So it seems there's this great debate online about whether you need this limited slip differential lubricant additive in the diff. So from what I've read, the Rubicon, which is what I have, I've got a 2006 TJ Rubicon, it doesn't need the friction additive. However, that being said, people have said they've taken a look at the tags on the diff covers, and it does say that it requires it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put it in the rear diff cover because it doesn't hurt if it's in there. And so if it needs it, it's got it. But for $10, I'll just put it in and not worry about if I did the right choice or not. So that's what I'm gonna do. I don't know, maybe I'm doing it wrong. We'll find out, but it's safe to be putting extra in that won't hurt it rather than not putting it in and making a mistake. So finally finished, and it was raining actually the day that I finished up, and I didn't get to take any video of the finished result, but there we are. Pretty straightforward install. I think it looks great, and it's definitely a lot more protection than what I had before. I ended up putting the TMR at the back because, like I said, it wasn't as thick as the Fab Frog. And also, if you notice, some paint got taken off on the TMR, so I don't think the paint job is as good either. So really pleased with the Fab Frog setup that I got. Let's see if I can get a better shot. What I ended up doing to access these bolts is I actually jacked the back of the Jeep up, and then so the differential dropped down a little bit and gave me a lot more room. So yeah, that's what happened. Cheers. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, as they always say.